Sometimes people come into our lives and before we realise it, they have left an indelible mark on our hearts and our minds, just simply by being who they are. They don't have to be particularly famous, rich, or even noteworthy. They just have to be good, kind, and make a difference to those around them. Without a shadow of doubt, Norm was such a person who just in his everyday made a difference to those around him. His family would be the first to tell you Norm was an honourable man, honest, and someone who lived his life according to his ethics. Old school in the way that he knew how people ought to be treated and, of course, he treated them accordingly. He was beyond generous and would certainly never use people or take advantage. In fact, if anything, he would always put himself forward to lend a hand, be it assisting where he could or simply sharing in his knowledge or offering advice or help to anyone who needed it. He certainly made family and friends visiting from overseas over the years feel very welcome and cared for in this regard. And he especially adored time spent with his mother-in-law, Mip, who would visit every 3 years as he would also go overseas and visit her. Norm really did love his family, especially his Ina, who he only wanted to have the very best in life. So many beautiful memories have been treasured of good times spent together, and today is about celebrating those moments and Norm's connection to each person connected with him in his life. My name's Tracy O'Connor and I'm extremely honoured to be leading today's service on behalf of Gavin Heritage and his colleagues here at Heritage Funerals, and also, of course, on behalf of Norm's own family. My very warmest welcome extends to those who are present, as well as those who can't be here in person and are either live streaming today or who will watch on at a later time, from near and far, thanks to Vivid Stream. And thanks to each and every one of you for joining in solidarity, love and support of each other at this very difficult time as we come together to celebrate Norm's life. Norm's family here would like to especially thank the family and friends overseas for their kind words and support, and very special acknowledgement and thanks to Maria and Gary Cross for the wonderful job that they've done with Norm's service booklets, which you'd each have in your hands at this moment and you can take home with you today as a keepsake. As we gather to commemorate Norm and pay tribute to his achievements, appreciating those precious times shared, along with the focus, care and attention that he gave to those around him, we ensure he's remembered well and, of course, with love. At a time such as this, when there is great sorrow, it is particularly important to feel free to be at one with any sadness or grief that you may well be feeling. Finding comfort in the strength that you'll draw from each other, though I also encourage you equally to feel the gladness, the happiness and the purpose of the life that Norm lived. As those near and far feel truly blessed to have had him share in their lives and, of course, to touch their hearts with his love and his kindness and his friendship. With much respect and appreciation, genuine love and thanks, we honour him. There's no doubt he'll be truly missed, and may we take solace that he lived a long and full life of 92.5 years. We've been blessed that in true Norm style, he's methodically detailed a concise biography for his family and generations to follow, to know and understand him by. It may take days, weeks, perhaps even months to read from start to finish, but it is most certainly detailed. And thankfully, we've been able to glean his life journey from it and share just some of this with you today. Norman was born on Tuesday the 16th of December in 1930 at 38 Geelong Road, Footscray, soon after the Depression started in 1929. He lived with his mother Elsie and father Frank Lewis, along with his older brother Arthur, at 1 Acton Street, Seddon, for the first 20 years of his life. He missed out on growing up with a sister, as Elsie Florence was stillborn in 1919, though she would have been his older sister. Their meagre house comprised of 2 bedrooms, lounge, kitchen, bathroom, sleep out, toilet attached to the fernery, a laundry and his father's shed. All of it on a very, very small block. There was much hardship living in the conditions they did, but it also went with the times, and so they didn't know any other way. He could recall his mum being an exceptional cook, especially in the way she could make magnificent pies and pastries and lots of different homemade dishes using whatever ingredients that were available to her at the time, and letting nothing go to waste for certain. He'd be in admiration of it, in fact, his mum's cooking, and after his father passed away whilst he was quite young, he had to return the favour and help out his mum by cooking and taking up chores around the home while she and his brother were working to bring the money in. During Norm's early years, of around 7 to 8 years old, he enjoyed visiting relatives in Warburton, heading out there and back via steam train, the only method of travel that was available to them at the time. He enjoyed time spent at his Uncle Harry's farm, truly loved spending time with the animals there too, but he also became quite homesick whilst he was away. Norm began his education at the Blackwood Street Babies' School in Yarraville before attending the Powell Street State School, where he remained until 1941. After 6th grade, he went to the Footscray Technical School. Trades were a good area to get into back then. Unfortunately, during 1936, there was a polio pandemic in Melbourne, and Norm missed a year of school after he became ill with it. In fact, he wasn't too lucky, and many other diseases common around that time also managed to find him. He wasn't the only one who suffered ill health and hard times because of the war, which finished in 1945, just before Norm turned 15 years of age. Norm was just 10 years old, though, when he first imagined himself to be a good sports person and began writing football stories, with him being the star, of course, in some action on the field. It's nice to hear this, and his story writing ability certainly improved over time, he claimed, and he soon played games as well using an imaginary system, then recorded what had taken place, being quite adept at making himself, of course, the best player on ground always. Perhaps this was Norm's intro to organised and precise record keeping, tied in with his love of sport, but football obviously in particular. Around this time too, as cricket was gaining its popularity and Norm's passion for it henceforth, he often tried to emulate the cricketers of the day. His dad was really interested in cricket too, had a love for it. Much time was spent visiting relations in the local area, and he was surrounded by many relations actually at the time. But with little money to spare meant the family didn't go away travelling, only venturing further afield on his own when his mum bought him a bicycle after he turned 14 years of age. He enjoyed keeping fit, Norm, always, and active, riding around, running, playing both football and cricket, along with the local kids, and making great fun in the street. Upon finishing technical school, Norm, though experienced considerable hardship during his formative years and with his limited education, understood he had fewer opportunities than some of the other kids his age that he knew at the time. All the while, he always knew he was destined for more. He really wanted to be successful. And it wasn't until he joined the army, in fact, where he was able to advance his education and able to get better jobs, that definitely helped him through the later years of his life. So again, going back to the technical school, upon finishing this, Norm tried his hand in carpentry for a short time before taking on his apprenticeship in fitting and turning, working with T.A. Duckworth Repetition Engineers, with a wage of £1 and 10 shillings for a very hard 44 hours of intense work per week, as it was in those days. Though the work was intense and difficult, Norm got the job done and made some really great friends along the way, enjoying the social aspect of his work and connecting with others. Even on his small wage, he managed to save some money, keeping it at the State Savings Bank in Seddon. One time, when trying to withdraw £1 from his account, He filled in the withdrawal slip incorrectly, and the bank manager, in fact, told him to come back when he could spell the word pound correctly. So Norm went home, looked it up in his dictionary, and returned to the bank to receive his money. He was very good at learning from life's experiences and using them to better himself all the time. Needless to say too, as those who knew him would vouch, Norm had a sharp mind, always. He was not only intelligent, but also cluey, this helping him succeed in life, from his work to his fine detail in documenting everything, to his thorough extensive research and findings when it came to putting together his family tree. Certainly a genuine hobby and interest of his, and he was especially chuffed to realise that early on in the family tree, his family, the Lewises, were actually in fact married in with the Dunlops from Scotland. Before joining the army, Norm also worked with federal felters in Footscray at a carpet factory, and for around 3 weeks he polished spoons, which he at the time hardly called a job, but it did fill in some time for him. Honestly though, sports were far more interesting to Norm at the time, and he's enjoyed a lifelong connection with football, and especially his time at the Yarraville Seddon Eagles. Norm has devoted much energy and time to the YSE, not only playing and supporting them in his early years, but also spending every week as their records keeper and documenter. Remaining part of the club has been a lifelong passion for him. More about that soon. Before the age of 21, Norm was signed up with the Army, with the Special Forces Korea for 2 years of engagement. From there, training in Australia, Puckapunyal, and travelling to Japan and Korea and sharing in many experiences around that time, and making many friends again along the way. He did return to Australia and married Aiko, and they not only shared a life together but welcomed their 2 boys, Graham and Raymond, into the world. After some more stints in the army, resulting in receiving medals for his services, Norm later took on a clerical course in Broadmeadows to better his skills and move away from the army work. He still remained involved with the footy club and enjoyed the friendships again forged along the way. And life was sailing, except within his marriage with Aiko, as he was still away a lot through that time, and also she did become quite ill. In 1973, Norm worked at the CRA, Rio Tinto, and soon found his feet there after quite a learning curve. Though it was very different from army life, Aiko had much trouble with her health for a time, and she sadly passed away in 1980. Norm's romance with Ina began a year after that, and they've been together ever since. Their devotion to one another unwavering. Both widowed, they connected easily and have enjoyed more than 4 decades together. And more about their story too from Ina shortly. Sharing in family, Norm liked Ina's son Gary right from their first meeting, and ever since, I think we'll hear from Gary too, so I won't go into that. But ever since too, Cynthia joined the family in marriage with Graham, they've remained very, very close. Norm couldn't have been happier than becoming granddad Norm, I should say, not granddad to Norm, becoming granddad Norm to Rhiannon, Amanda and Stephen, now with their respective partners, Rob and Ebony. And Rob sporting his most wonderful army uniform today, which is a lovely sign of respect too. Thank you. And then to share his life with great-grandchildren too, Ali, Angus and Abigail, who placed those lovely flowers on his coffin today. He has been very, very blessed, cherishing Ina and his family and remaining as involved in their lives as he can, and proud to the nth degree of their achievements. And now, for further tributes, history and stories, I invite Gary forward to honour Norm with a personal tribute of his own.
Hi all. For those who don't know me, I'm Gary, and I'm Norm's stepson. I've known Norm since I was 17. Back in 1981, Mum went for an overnight trip with a bowling club to Albury, Wodonga. When she came home, I immediately noticed that she was happy. There were stars in her eyes. As my own father had died a year ago, I thought this was a good thing because Mum being happy meant I was happy. She told me she had met an amazing man, and when I asked what's his name, she made me guess by referring to a now very old advertising TV campaign that was called Life Be In It, where the main focus was a character called Norm. And one of the ads ended with, "Beaut, Norm." So Mum said, "Beaut?" I said, "Norm?" She said, "That's right." As a side note, this was especially appropriate as another one of the ads from the Life Be In It commercials had the line, "Rover appreciates a walk around the park." And Norm had a dog called Rover. I remember the first time I met Norm. I got home from school and Mum had left me a note with some money for pizza, saying she was going out with Norm. Needless to say, I didn't waste any time going out and buying that pizza. When I got back, I found that Mum had decided to bring Norm home and introduce him to me. My first impressions were that this was a personable man who I liked. He made me feel comfortable to meet him. As I got to know him over the coming months, I found that Norm had a sharp mind, was very cluey, and truly loved my mother. This was important to me because I knew Mum needed someone in her life, and Norm was a good man. He was also a very capable man. One of the things I respected about Norm was his ability to do whatever he wanted. For instance, he and my mother built a holiday house at Aireys Inlet, something that I always considered to be an amazing feat. Norm was also a man of modest means. He didn't gather many possessions over his life, but what he did have were useful things. He didn't buy items for the sake of buying them, use them once, and then put them away never to be used again. To me, it seemed that every purchase he made was weighed up carefully. Financially, he was very wise. He was also wise with his advice. Norm would often give out pearls of wisdom. For example, and this is one of the things that stuck with me, if you're at work and the boss isn't around and you have to make a decision, make it. You'll be right 90% of the time. This advice helped me in my own jobs. Norm spent a lot of time on his computer doing things for his football club, the Yarraville Seddon Eagles. He knew more about using computers than most people I know. He would often remark that his son, Graham, always patiently taught him everything he knew and how appreciative he was of that. You have to respect someone who embraces the latest technology, especially when they are in their 80s. One of Norm's goals in life was to be the oldest Lewis. And for that, he had to reach 88 years of age to break that record. Well, he was 92 and a half, when he passed, and he smashed that record. I think we can all agree. One of the biggest things I respected about Norm was his dedication to his personal health. He gave up things that he considered were harming him. For instance, he gave up alcohol. When I asked him what made him do it, he said, "I want to live." Such a simple answer, but so profound. He walked 5 kilometres every day without fail. He will be up at 6:30 in the morning and go for his walk no matter what the weather conditions, which is certainly more than I can do. He did that for at least 30 years until he could no longer do it due to his body failing from dementia. It was heartbreaking to watch his body fail him, and though he is dearly missed, I take solace in the fact that he is no longer living in a state that he would have hated. Norm was a generous, intelligent, and active man who lived his life well. He had many who loved him, respected him, and adored him. He took care of himself and those around him. He was one of the most giving people I knew. It was always a comfort for me to know that he was around for Mum. Even towards the end of his life, he would tell me, when she was out of the room, how much he still loved her. He was generous with his money, preferring to use it to help others while he was still alive. Norm lived his life well, made no enemies, was an inspiration for what could be done. He was in my life for 42 years. I hold many dear memories of him. He was family. I will miss him.
Thank you so much for that, Gary. What a wonderful tribute and eulogy. Very well told. Thank you. And I would now like to invite Rhiannon, Norm's granddaughter, to come forward and offer her tribute on behalf of the family. Thank you.
Hello. I wrote a lot of things. I thought that's actually what I should do. Granddad was one of the most organised people I knew. Sorry. Sorry. He was one of the most organised people I knew, which is why I thought I needed to write things down.
Courage, darling, courage. Courage. Family on family. I'll introduce who I am after. Go ahead, have faith.
But I think what I wrote is not what I need to say. A lot of the memories that I have of Grandad were about the things that he loved the most, and Gary's already touched on a lot of that, as well as Tracy. I don't know that I can add much more. But just my own memories. Granddad loved the footy club. And when I was little, I used to go with Dad and Amanda sometimes to the club, and I could never figure out why he loved so much about footy, but he used to give us $2 and we could go to the canteen, and I thought that was great. So I loved going to the footy with Granddad and Dad. He loved walking, and as Gary said, he would walk 5 kilometres every day. And when I was little, he used to take us to the park and we would walk around and around and around. And when I was little, I just thought, how can someone love walking so much? But he would always bring some stale bread with us, and we would feed the ducks. And we loved doing that. Granddad loved the army, and he was an excellent clerk, and I think his skills and experiences from that time he passed on to us, and I married and fell in love with an army man. I think he reminds me a lot of Granddad. I always think of him as being there. He's always been there. Like Gary said, he was very proud to be the oldest Lewis man. And like Gary said, he smashed that out. He made it to 92 and a half. He had a whole lifetime of experiences before I was born. And he was very proud of the book that he wrote, which was 200 plus pages of tiny, tiny little writing, which I slogged my way through. I'm going to say, Grandad, I don't think your storytelling was really, really fantastic. But it was honest and it was true, which was one of the virtues, I think, that he brought to everybody that he knew. And I know we don't live forever, but I just somehow always thought that he would be there. So
He will be.
yeah, there wasn't a family event or special occasion that he missed. He was always there. So it will be hard going forward now, knowing that he won't be. But he was very, very deeply loved by his family, and we will miss him a lot, but always remember. Thank you. And thank you all for coming to help us remember and celebrate his life. Thank you.
Am I next? Yes, Dave. Thank you.
Do you just want to introduce yourself?
Oh dear. I feel for you, Rihanna. It's a sad time for everyone. I must introduce myself. My name is Joan Greaves. My husband Robert was a cousin of Norm's. My first encounter with the Lewis family was 65 years ago when I went to live with Auntie Elsie while Norm was away in Korea during the war. We lived there for a few years until we had our daughter and we moved on. But I loved her dearly. She was a great lady. You young people there, remember your great-grandmother. My life goes back, as I said, to the 1980s. One of my sons said, I've written a eulogy, but I should explain who I am to you all. Many a day have I sat with Norm at our beloved football clubs. 3 of them, well, they were all one, but they changed their names from various times. And I want to read to you an article that was written by my husband in 2016. He was a bit like Norm, liked to pick up the pen and do some writing, so he's left us with some wonderful stories. Three of us were all life members of the Kingswell Football Club, where it all started. And this is Bob's story, sorry. Norman joined the Kingswell Football Club somewhere in the 40s. The exact date at the time of writing unknown, although there are people who claim it was before the Big Bang. Apart from his army service in Korea and Vietnam, he has contributed in some capacity to the club ever since he joined the club in his teens. He has proved to be a wonderful servant over many, many years. He has served in a variety of ways: player, goal umpire, committeeman, stats recorder. Then he founded and became editor of the club's organ, Killer Kudos. Later on, as the club changed names, the title changed to Tiger Titbits and the Eagle's Eye. He evolved to become the club's historian and took on the monumental task of writing the club's history. His devotion and commitment to this body of work reflects great credit upon him, and the club is all the richer for it. Norm's devotion and contribution to this club is quite unique. He is fast approaching a total of 70 years with the club and is not enjoying the best of health at the moment. The fact that he felt unable to produce the Eagle's Eye recently suggests that a rest was well overdue. I hope that one day there will be an official acknowledgement of his outstanding contribution. Any accolades received would be well deserved. Well done, Norm. In conclusion, may I add that some life members are in the process of recommending to the office bearers and committee of Yarrable Seddon Eagles that Norm be honoured in some way for his years of dedication. Hopefully in future years an award will be named after him. And thank you.
I'd first like to say thank you and just acknowledge Rhiannon's part there for her tribute, because it's just not easy at all being up here and being emotional at the same time. And I think you've done a beautiful job in representing your granddad's interests and his loves, especially that of his family, and you can really just feel that. So well done. And thanks to Joan and your husband Bob as well. For the wonderful tribute, and also placing that tribute on social media for all to read and also see the respect and the honouring that Norm has received from the footy club. So that's really important for his family to see that as well and hear that. So thank you. The YSE have, as I said, placed this tribute on their social media page, and they actually labelled Norm Lewis as a player, supporter and loyal friend of the club. And I think you'll actually see that on your booklets as well. So it all ties in really nicely out of respect for Norm and the time that he spent and with his passions and his love. So, lastly, yet ever so importantly, in terms of tributes, I have these memories from Ina to share as Norm's wife and life partner. Norm came into Ina's life at exactly the right time, it seems. She was taken with his beautiful blue eyes and his positive demeanour. They greatly enjoyed their outings and their time spent at clubs and talking and playing cards together, among many other things. They really clicked. Norm was always very attentive to Ina and showed her how much he cared at every opportunity. Norm loved going to the radio station to hear Ina deliver her fortnightly Dutch program, and he would send her flowers too every week without fail, just to show her how much he cared and that she was thought of. Together, as Gary mentioned, they built a holiday home at Aireys Inlet where many barbecues and parties were hosted over the years with friends every weekend, and those were very, very good times, I understand. Ina recalls that Norm liked his retirement routine as well, of working in the garden or around the place until 1 p.m. precisely each day. Then it was tools down and relaxation time. Together they greatly enjoyed attending the 65th and it was either the 67th or 68th anniversary of the Korean War ceasefire appreciation luncheon in the Grand Ballroom at Albert Park. And spending Christmases together too, as a family, were always wonderful and a big deal for them as occasions. Norm's 92nd birthday, Ina says, was lovely and a memorable event recently too. Now, Norm always wanted to look after those around him and make sure that everybody was okay. When it came to the increased care that Norm needed over these past years, Ina was right there by his side, ensuring that he remained at home for as long as possible. That with the help of Cynthia, who took great care and gave her time and love as well, whilst Gary took care of the day-to-day running of the house. Ina claiming, it's just what you do for those you love. But I'm sure he appreciated it greatly, Ina. So let's now take a few moments to reflect further upon Norm's life and times, as each of your shared connections with him have been incredibly significant. Here now is a special collection of photos that have been carefully selected, together with a piece of music that truly resonates. And thank you to, once again, to Maria and Gary for putting this together.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man? What he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my Yes, it was my way.
Beautiful, good to see him in the sporting colours there too. Reflecting upon those photos really helps us to understand the richness and the fullness of the life that Norm chose for himself. It's obvious just how much he cared for those around him, and it seems that you'd rarely meet somebody as generous and as appreciative as Norm was. Now, I mentioned earlier that Norm always wanted to become a success, and that's what he really did end up becoming in his life, is a great success, personally. And I'm now going to read a poem that is on your order of service booklets that's called That Man Is a Success by Robert Louis Stevenson. That man is a success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who leaves the world better than he found it, whether by an improved poppy or a perfect poem or a rescued soul, who never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who looked for the best in others and gave the best he had. You know, in all of our life's experiences between birth and death, they are what make up who we ultimately become. And Norm, as you knew him, lived his life fully and in the way that he wanted, making his time on earth a success. And enjoying his time with those around him, creating quality connections and immersing himself in his career along with his hobbies and interests to ensure that he made the most of his time. There's no doubt that Norm remained loyal and committed to those around him throughout his life. These things considered, the manner in which he chose to live leaves us to consider life itself as a gift, incredibly precious and certainly one to be valued and cherished. Norm's manner in which he connected with others reminds us, and particularly every member of his family too, shows us that it's certainly worth putting in all the effort that we can in order to show those around us how much we care. In doing so, we receive the goodwill and love as much as we could ever ask for in return. There's no doubt that Norm's legacy will live on in all who have learned from him, spent time with him, and received his generosity, help, and guidance. He knew too that he was blessed to have his loyal and faithful wife Ina share in his life journey too, in addition to Gary, Cynthia, along with his family and his sons, all who love him dearly. Today and always, we thank him, for touching the lives of those that he loved and the time and effort that he made for them. We thank them too for giving back. We thank him for sharing in his values of hard work, independence, determination and resilience, and leading by example of these things. We thank him for all the good times shared, for valuing family and those he connected with, and for being a genuinely good human. As this service draws to a close, I trust that you each have your own reasons to be thankful for Norm's presence in your lives. Please feel free to connect and share in any stories you may have with each other today and in the future. And certainly, Rhiannon, if you have read that near on 300 pages or so of his biography in full, feel free to share those stories too. By sharing in stories of Norm over the years to come, we will keep his spirit alive and well in the hearts and minds of those who have loved him and known him. Norm knew just how greatly loved he was, feeling the presence of that certainly when he left this world. An integral part of his family and circle, he certainly leaves this world a richer place than he found it and will be greatly missed. With much love and respect, we now bid you farewell, Norman Lewis. In grief at your death, but in appreciation of your life and the absolute privilege of sharing it with you, on behalf of all who knew you, your memory will be forever cherished. So thank you. I now welcome Norm's granddaughter, or great-granddaughter I should say, Ali, to recite the Ode of Remembrance before we sound the last post and reveille. In respect, can we all please now stand quietly?
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them, lest we forget.
Let's say goodbye with a smile, dear, just for a while, dear, we must part. Don't let this parting upset you, I'll not forget you, sweetheart. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do. clouds far away, and I will just say hello to the folks that you know. Tell them you won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as I saw you go, you were singing this song. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. And I will just say hello to the folks that you know. Tell them you won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as I saw you go, you were singing this song. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when.